This is J.G. Hertzler. You're listening to NX7062 Podcast.
Yes, you are. It is that time again, the NX7062 Podcast coming at you live from an undisclosed location in southern New Jersey. And see, I'm wearing my Section 31 shirt tonight, so obviously it's undisclosed because Section 31 is all about the hush. So before we get into the Star Trek stuff, which I have got plenty of to talk to you guys about tonight, I wanted to tell you a little something funny that happened to me last week, literally right after the show. So I got done the show. I get out of my office. I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I notice that there's a notification from Facebook saying Sony Music has released the hold on your broadcast or something along those lines. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me what the hell they were talking about. I'm like, why was Sony Music even protesting or whatever you want to call my podcast? And then I remembered that commercial that I showed y'all last week with Connor in it. That commercial had a published song in it, a popular song. I honestly, off the top of my head, I can't even remember what it was. Sony must own the rights to that song, so somehow one of their little bots or Facebook's little bots found out that song played in my podcast, and they ratted me out to Sony. But when Sony looked, of course, they couldn't hold it against me because obviously Club Med paid for the rights for the song to be in the commercial. So, hey, Robert. So if anybody had an issue with the commercial or with the song or whatever, me airing that, it had to be Club Med, not Sony. And you got to figure Club Med isn't going to be upset that I'm running one of their older commercials. But it was just funny that Sony tried to knock that piece out of my podcast, and nanny boo-boo. You can't, because I showed a Club Med commercial and Club Med paid for the rights, I'm sure, in perpetuity to use that song in their commercial. So, haha. Score one for the good guys, I guess you could say. Anyway, I just thought that was really funny. And it happened literally, I think, at a minute after the podcast went live, and it all happened within the second that I shut it off, because it was like 10:45, and I went, didn't I just, isn't that when I kind of ended everything? So that was kind of weird, but that's how quickly they will jump on you if they think that you're violating something. I just thought that it was really cool that I won. So what else is going on? Hello, Domestic. How are you? So what else is going on in the Star Trek universe? They added Zachary Quinto to STLV is what's going on. He is the 31st. He's listed as the 31st guest on their website. Reed Pop and Star Trek Mission Chicago still holding steady at 6. So who knows what the hell. I would have loved to have gone just because I've never been to Chicago before, so it would have been a really great reason to go to Chicago. But 6 guests right now, and financially and all this other stuff, and people that I will people that I would more than likely see at STLV, and it's not worth the expense. Chicago, as I've said before, Chicago's a very expensive city. Where the convention center is located is not really conducive to finding cheaper accommodations outside of the 3 hotels that are attached to the convention center, unlike Vegas, where it's ridiculously easy. Because even if you found something reasonable, cheap, and safe and clean, whatever money you saved up, you'd be probably just eaten up in Ubers or cabs or however you chose to get to the convention, to and from the convention. So right now, for me, it's looking like a pass. If that changes, you guys will be among the first to know. Yeah, I don't know what Repop was thinking. Maybe they should have just waited another year. I know they just got the license and they really wanted to move. But it seems like Star Trek Las Vegas is kicking their ass right now. The other convention that I won't be going to and that I'm very sad I'm going to miss is Trek Conderoga. War Dog! Hey, how are you? Good to see you. The other convention that I'm not going to be going to, unfortunately, that I would love to go to, that I've been to before, Trek Conderoga, which is August 19th, 20th, and 21st. I will already be in Las Vegas because Las Vegas convention is the weekend after, and I like to get to Vegas early, hang out with my bestie, and chill out by the pool and do some other stuff before the convention starts. Because as much as I love STLV, I've never been there where I haven't worked in some capacity. So it's nice to have a bit of a Vegas vacation before starting STLV. If you're not going to Vegas, if you can't afford Vegas, which is understandable, Trek Conderoga has got Brent Spiner, Gates McFadden, and there's one other person off the top of my head I can't remember. You can check them out on StarTrekTours.com or StarTrekTour.com. We'll get you to the tour site. Actually, as a happy Valentine's present to all the Trek fans, J.G. Hertzler and Bob O'Reilly are going to be up there in makeup for the weekend. That's Valentine's weekend. And again, probably not something that I'm going to be able to do because the following weekend, because that's right before Gallifrey, and I'm heading out to Gallifrey in Los Angeles. But JG and Bob are, as I said, look at this, great minds thinking alike. JG and Bob are going to be up there in February to kick off Valentine's weekend. It's great. The tour is amazing. They have Shatner's going to be there 2 times this year at least. Before Trek Conderoga, they've got Walter Koenig and George Takei on a different weekend. I was just looking to see. It's about a 5.5 hour, give or take, drive for me to get up there. It really is kind of boondocky. There's a train, but you have to kind of like fly into New York City and hop the train to get up there. And I think the train runs once a day. I think you can catch it twice a day, something like that. But yeah, there's a train, and then there's Magic Lasso. Hello. Oh, looks like we've got a bot in the room, and we're going to get rid of them right away. I know Lasso was telling me he had issues with the last live show that he did. So Lasso knows what I'm talking about. You got to be on the lookout for those bots that pop in. And if I don't catch them quick enough, I apologize if they say anything offensive. We're all adults here, but that doesn't mean that you're looking for crap in the chats. Let's just be honest. But I highly recommend Ticonderoga and the Star Trek tour. I've done it twice. It's fucking awesome. So if you haven't had a chance, check it out. Like I said, if you don't live within, a relatively decent distance, then definitely check out one of the big weekends. We're going to have guests up there because that makes all the difference in the world. Let's see. Chat moderators. Right now it's manageable, Lasso, but that might not be a bad idea. So thank you for that. All right, so we got Zachary Quinto. We talked about Reed Pop. We talked about Ticonderoga. Also, if you head over to StarTrek.com, they've got a preview of the new Playmate line of Star Trek collectibles, their collections, which right now are some really, really good-looking action figures and some ships. And while I was researching for tonight's show, I actually stumbled upon an article where I feel this pain. Why isn't there more Star Trek Enterprise stuff? Right now, the collectibles that I saw from Playmate, which is the new line, and they better get on, this better just be a very small sample because you got TOS, TNG, I think it was the original Enterprise ship, and Discovery. So not only didn't they do Enterprise, but they jumped from TNG to Discovery. And I get it, Discovery's on now, but how about a little love for everything that's gone before? And maybe release them in series order instead of jumping 3 series and going right to Disco. Honestly, I think I can't be the only person that thinks this. But yeah, seriously, where's the 3? Where's DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise? I really think they should have thought about that before they went into Disco. But hey, that's just me. And I don't know where Kim is. I hope she comes out. I hope she got the Facebook reminder, but because we're going to talk about Prodigy really quickly, because I mean, seriously, the title of this past week's episode of Prodigy was Time Amok. Gotta love that, right? Time Amok. I loved it. But it was actually about time running amok and the ship being caught in this weird temporal anomaly that had each of the characters in their own time, either running too fast, too slow, or normal, and they all kind of had to help each other out because Janeway, the hologram, was the only thing that was able to jump between times, and it was all about learning teamwork. But Rock, actually, who was stuck in the slowest part of the anomaly, they accelerated her development because she had all this time to learn. It was literally 10 minutes. It was 10 minutes, but for her that this was happening, real time was 10 minutes, but for her it was, they never actually said how long, but it was long enough for her to learn engineering and computers and all this amazing stuff. So they've kind of slingshot Rock as far as her development goes. So it's going to be interesting to see what she does with all this new knowledge. You guys, I have 3 pages worth of Enterprise stuff to share with you that I researched for the show, because it is the one that is nearest and dearest to my heart. It is the one that brought me back into Star Trek from 2016. I know I've said that so many times, but literally, without brought back into the fold, without my love of Enterprise, I'm not sure that I would be sitting here right now talking to you all. So yay, Enterprise. Broken Bow, the first episode, premiered on September 26th in 2001. And then the final episode, which nobody really likes to talk about, These Are the Voyages, premiered on May 13th of 2005. Voyager ended, their last episode, Endgame, was May 23rd of 2001. So really, there wasn't technically any lapse. When Star Trek ended, when Enterprise ended in 2005, after that, that was the first time on TV since 1987 that there hadn't been Trek on television, because obviously nobody counts the off season. So yeah, it was Voyager ended, and then the new season on the UPN picked up with Enterprise. It has currently, Rotten Tomatoes only gave Enterprise a 55%, whereas the audience average on Rotten Tomatoes is 79%. I honestly would have thought that it would have been higher. Anybody that goes on Facebook, there are at least 3 or 4 Enterprise-specific groups. And what's so funny about these groups, especially when a new person signs on, is that the new person is always so excited to see that there are other people that share their enthusiasm for the show, because when Enterprise first came out, the following was minimal, and it really didn't come into its own until streaming. So a lot of people that join these groups are like, oh my god, there's more Enterprise fans out there. Real quick, just because I felt like doing something fun, I want to share the then and now pictures, and I don't know why it went blank. See, I sort of got, I was having so much fun doing all that sharing stuff last week. Is it because I closed it? No, I know I didn't close it. So there it is. So why won't you let me share it? Oh, that's why. Okay, let's try this again, guys. All right, so we're going to do this little then and now thing, just because I can. There we go. Having so much fun. So we all know that this is what everybody looked like back in the day. This is one of the cooler pictures that, promo picture. This is what everybody looked like back in the day, and we'll get to what they look like now. But this was at the height. This is what Enterprise was. The first foray into space. Yeah, see, I did too, War Dog. I loved it from the beginning. But I rewatched it on Netflix in 2016 before I bought them on Blu-ray, and I fell in love with it all over again. And honestly, I forgot how much I loved the theme until I rewatched it. But I think part of the problem, and I think a lot of people will agree, part of the problem with Enterprise is that UPN was kind of a doomed place for it to start off. I mean, that network just never, UPN needed Star Trek as much as Star Trek needed UPN, and it just never gelled. A lot of the problems too was it got preempted because the UPN would air local sports. Even Scott Bakula's hometown they couldn't watch it at one point on a regular basis because it kept getting preempted for local sporting events. One of the reasons that I've liked it, one of the reasons that a lot of people like it, that I found out, is that look back on how everything started. And that was actually when Rick Berman went to Brannon Braga. Now, Brannon was burnt out. He walked away from the last season of Voyager because Braga was just done. He was Star Trek'd out. He was burnt out. But then First Contact came along. He and Rick had done First Contact together. And Rick went to him and said, I've got this idea that we do like I've always called it this, kind of like the sequel to First Contact, because for First Contact, Brandon felt was really relatable because it was closer to our own timeline. And one of the really attractive things about Enterprise was there was no canon. You knew basic history from TOS when you heard about, World War III. They talked about things very loosey-goosey kind of in TOS. So there was no canon. It was Rick and Brandon got to kind of invent the canon between First Contact and TOS. So this is like this beautiful clean slate for the most part, where they could talk about how we built the relationship with the Vulcans and the Andorians and the Tellarites and the Klingons. It was all fresh for them to do. So that's kind of what brought Brandon back in the fold, at least for a little while. He got burnt out again pretty quickly. But that's what got him in to do it in the first place, was just this whole new frontier. But by the same token, that turned off a lot of people, a lot of higher up, a lot of executives. A lot of people thought it wasn't going to fly because, it's all about moving forward. But then let's look at it this way. I mean, how bored are we? All of the shows were about moving forward. And Voyager had some missteps. And, it was time they were looking at doing something completely fresh. But there was also a hubris behind it. Yes, we're doing something fresh, but it's Star Trek. The people will come. The people will come even if we don't put Star Trek in the title, because it was just Enterprise for the first couple of seasons. The people will come. And then it premieres, and people get one listen to that theme song, and that sparks, who would have thought that a simple theme song would have sparked so much controversy? In fact, what's really funny is that when I was doing my research, I was on one of the geek sites. It wasn't Den of Geek. It was the other one. Oh, Giant Freaking Robot or something. And I was just kind of, looking up to see what this person had to say. And granted, I know that this is this person's opinion about Enterprise, but they really got rude about the song. They called Russell Watson a Rod Stewart wannabe, which he is definitely not. If anybody knows anything about Russell Watson, he actually, I don't know if he's classically trained, but he also sings opera. He doesn't just sing pop. He actually does opera, and he's got a beautiful voice. So don't start calling Russell Watson a Rod Stewart wannabe when you obviously don't know anything about War Dog. You get points for getting the title right and not calling it Faith of the Heart. But the minute he started getting really nasty about the theme, which I know not a lot of people liked, I get it. So many people wanted to shut the show off. So many people in the Enterprise fan rooms talk about how they skip it. There's a whole bunch of people like, oh my God, I love skip intro. And then a bunch of people like, I never skip it. I never skip it. I never skip it. But my train just derailed. My train of thought just derailed. So I got mad. So I stopped reading. I'm like, I don't give a crap whether anything else you have. So I went about my research and found out and got my information from other places. But yeah, Giant Freaking Robot, I was just a little annoyed. Let's see. Scott Bakula called Enterprise the right stuff when he was originally asked about it. And And believe it or not, he was the only candidate for Archer, which I have no problems with. But the problem is that they honestly didn't know 100% if he was going to do it until he sat down at the table read 3 days before production started. And there was a concern, I guess there was a rumor floating around that he had another offer for a comedy. And everybody was biting their nails because they had never considered anybody else for Archer. But as we all know, and as we're all happy to report, he obviously showed up for work that day, and everybody was breathing huge sighs of relief. Unlike Archer, they had a huge problem casting T'Pol. They auditioned a ton of people before they even saw Jolene's demo, and decided that she had the right amount of sex appeal, as well as, Vulcan-ness, which probably had something to do with the fact that she used to watch TOS, and her favorite character was Spock. She said her favorite relationship, she loved the love-hate and animosity-driven relationship between Bones and Spock. But Spock, to her, was her favorite character. So it just made sense that kind of all fell into place. It kind of also makes sense why she had problems with the directions that they took the character. The sexiness, the relationship with Trip, the fact that she kind of became a little more human as it went on, where she wasn't the Vulcan among humans. She kind of like Data. She kind of wanted to be a little more like them. But we all know, I love her. I don't love her. I love her. I think she's amazing. But I don't love her because she was sexy. I always wondered why Vulcans wore silk pajamas. That always just kind of bothered me a little bit. I loved her portrayal of a Vulcan. I loved. Domestic, go ahead and finish your thought. I want to know what you think of the theme to Enterprise. So anyway, that's where Jolene came into play. Turns out that they auditioned Connor, and I mentioned this last week, I think. They auditioned Connor 5 times. Like Connor has said, some people just walked in. He had auditioned 5 times, and I think part of that was that Rick Berman had to fight for him. He really thought Connor was Trip. But obviously, everybody else had to be convinced, and luckily for the rest of us, they were, because he is Trip Tucker. Anthony Montgomery, they loved him. When they first saw him, they thought he had the right amount of youth and just stage presence and everything that they wanted in the helmsman. And while Anthony knew Trek, he never considered himself a Trekkie, but he still had enough of an understanding of Star Trek that when they put him at the helm and he got to sit there and he's like, I'm going to fly this starship, he still had that amazing, amazing feeling about it, even though he wasn't quite a Trekkie. Let's see, Linda. They definitely, obviously this predates TOS. So communications was way more rudimentary than in any, like, TNG and Forward. It even had to be more rudimentary than TOS, where they already had the universal translator. So not only did they need somebody who's going to be a communications officer and have the little piece in her ear like Uhura, she also had to be a linguist. She had to be, like, next to magical, they said, in her translator skills. And they just, when they took a look at Linda, she was exactly what they wanted. They also needed her to portray that unspaceward. Like, she never thought about wanting to go to space. She got space sick for the whole first season, to the point where she had to change her quarters because the stars went the wrong way. So she was amazing because she was this book smart prodigy of a communicator and a translator. But then on the flip side, she had nothing with the space, with her space legs. So it was a nice little juxtaposition. And yep, Hoshi did invent the universal translator. Even from the first episode where it wasn't working when she was trying to do Klingon, which was really funny. Another cool story is that Dominic Keating actually went in for a guest spot. They needed a Brit on Voyager for an episode. And he went in and Rick Berman liked him, but he liked him for Enterprise. He didn't like him for, he was like, you know what? Basically, I'm not going to waste you on a one-off on Voyager. I've got this idea. We're working on the show. Give us 8 or 9 months, and we're going to bring you in for that. And gee, I mean, what was Dominic going to say? But yeah, it's like guest spot now or series spot later. Let's see. Bothered by the theme song, but never skip the intro. Now it wouldn't be Enterprise without the theme song. There you go. It absolutely would not be Enterprise without Where My Heart Will Take Me. It does. It does definitely have to grow on some people. But I mean, I always liked it from the beginning because I always saw what they were trying to do. With it. And it was one of the things that they were trying to do to kind of separate. It's like, yes, this is Star Trek, but this is different Star Trek. This is Star Trek that you haven't seen before. So that was part of the reason why they wanted to do that with the theme, is because they were trying to say, yes, it is, but no, it's not. Which did not work in their favor the way they thought, which is why they added Star Trek to the title in the 3rd season. And they also, with all the complaints about the theme, they just decided, let's make it faster. Yeah, that really didn't do anything, but it annoyed me. I mean, the faster version's grown on me. I still prefer the original version. But I don't know what they thought that they were going to win over by making a theme that half the people at least didn't like. Making it faster wasn't the problem. A lot of people, including the Star Trek Rat Pack, because they have a song about it called Xindi, think that the 3rd season is kind of what killed Enterprise. They decided to go in this direction. Part of it was an answer to the 9/11 mentality, because as obviously you heard me say the date, they went on the air, 2 weeks after 9/11? So that mentality kind of followed them, and then it caught up with them for this 3rd season arc, which again, some people love it. I think it's great. I love the Xindi arc. I thought it was really interesting, but it turns out they were trying to set the Xindi up. They were actually thinking about using them going forward in the 4th season. Obviously that never happened, and they just did a bunch of these little mini arcs where you got, you never got just Tara Prime and Demons was a 2-parter, but besides that, I think every other continued episode for the 4th season was at least 3 parts. Nope. See, I'm catching myself. Should never say. Inner Mirror Darkly was a 2-parter, but the Vulcan arc was 3. The Augments was 3. So there was a mix of 2 or 3-parters. There were very few standalones in the 4th season. But what I found, and I did not know this, what I found out was that there was talk of killing Captain Archer off. They knew they were in trouble in the 3rd season. And for some reason, somebody thought a really good idea was to kill off the main character and replace him with a younger captain. Well, that really, really wouldn't have worked. I mean, let's face it. The crew was gelled together. Let's see, Studio Suits. What's War Dog got to say? Studio Suits taking Sure Thing hit shows and turning them into ratings losers within a season. That happens, and you know what? Even when the ratings are good, sometimes studios tend to pull the plug, because the ratings weren't abysmal. But when you can't find the show because the UPN is barely showing it, they moved it. I think the 3rd or 4th season, they gave it the Friday night Death Knell time slot. A lot of higher ups at Paramount were leaving because there was a split. Viacom, CBS, and Paramount split at the time, so there was that issue. People were walking out. The Xindi, people loved it, people hated it. They lost advertisers. I mean, it was just this perfect storm of crap. It would have been hard for a show to weather 1 or 2 of these things happening simultaneously, let alone all of this stuff. You can survive a bad season if your advertisers stick with you, if you've got, if there's not a huge upheaval at the studio. I mean, Brandon and Rick both left. They weren't the showrunners anymore. Manny Cotto took over. There was just a lot of upheaval. And, you know, like I said, I think a lot of people were just skating on the fact there was a Star Trek show. So why shouldn't it go for 7, 8, 9 seasons, whatever? But it was just, you know, and TOS had the same problem in the 3rd season where it got moved to a Friday night. And sometimes that's all it takes. You know, it's like you're the UPN, you're the Paramount Network, and you take your Star Trek show and put it in one of the worst time slots on the planet. God, back then, what was it? It was like TiVo. People could TiVo it, but then you TiVo it, and then you find out it's not on because there's some stupid sporting event. And listen, I love my sporting events, but not when it interferes with my Star Trek. And so I think what people even tried, they actually, when it was in trouble, they actually did try a writing campaign like they did to save TOS. They got TOS the 3rd season. But obviously it didn't work. And the 5th season that they were all hoping for never happened. What's sad in a way is that the fandom hasn't really caught on until now. I mean, it's streaming and it's people giving it a second look. And the fandom has grown probably exponentially since its original airing. I mean, when it left, that was it. There was no new Star Trek until J.J. Abrams came along and did the reboot in 2009. And some of the articles I read was like, oh, Star Trek 2009 was everything Enterprise wasn't. Why? Because it gave you like a Kirk, but it gave you an alternate Kirk time origin story. I like the reboots. I like the reboots as they are. But the fact of the matter is you can't really say that, because I think the Kelvin timeline is more polarizing than Enterprise was. I think the Kelvin timeline pissed more people off than Enterprise ever could have, just because they took everything everybody loved, they threw it in a blender and said, now we're going to do it this way. So at least Enterprise was sticking to canon. Their timeline was always right in the Prime universe. And the fact that it's the only timeline that survived into the Kelvin universe, because everything obviously happened with Kirk and forward, which again is just one of the reasons like I said, I like it, but I don't know how you can say that the 2009 movie was everything that Enterprise wanted to be. Because the one thing it really wasn't was it wasn't in the same timeline, which to some people makes it non-canonical. So I don't understand how you could say that about the movies. I think the movies have to stand on their own. I don't think you can compare. It's apples and oranges. But maybe, you know, the fact that the movies, the J.J. Abrams stuff obviously gave rise to a new breed of Star Trek fan. It brought more people into the franchise. I'd be interested to know, and I don't know if there's any way to find this out, if there's any research that bears this out, but I'm just curious how many of those people that got into the franchise thanks to those movies are watching Discovery and you know, and gained an interest, and now they're part of the Prime timeline as well, and that they, you know, they're going back and looking at things and enjoying some of the original stuff thanks to the Kelvin timeline. I don't know. Worth a couple of keystrokes, I guess, when I'm through with it. I know, you know, obviously These Are the Voyages is something that Brandon Braga has apologized for on. Hey, Jamie, good to see you. Thanks for popping in. You are among friends here. There's a lot of people in here that like Enterprise. So thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. So These Are the Voyages is something that Brandon has actually apologized for. Because I don't look at it as making the entire show look like it was a holodeck experience. Now, granted, I don't remember the last time I watched These Are the Voyages. I've told everybody this before. When I had Heroes and Icons, I would fall asleep to it because it comes on at midnight. I would fall asleep to it, and the minute that I saw that it was These Are the Voyages, I would fall asleep to something else because I wouldn't even want to fall asleep to it. But I know that's a holodeck program. But I feel like that episode was meant to be the only holodeck. It's not like they were saying, okay, this entire thing was Riker watching holodeck. No. It was just Riker and the last episode. And that was it. It was just that one episode was supposed to be the holodeck program. I one of these days, I've said I won't watch it on TV, but I am still in my initial rewatch on my Blu-rays. So when I get to it on my Blu-rays, I will probably watch it just to say that I've rewatched it, and then immediately probably turn around and watch Broken Bow to bring Trip back to life. Not that he's dead, because we all know in the books he's alive. But I mean, I, like a lot of people, wish that there was more. I know that people have been floating around saying, well, they could do an animated series, and if they could get all the original cast back, they could do an animated series. The Seventh Rule and Virtual TrekCon, and I mentioned this before, they've talked about how, Jolene Blalock showing up at Star Trek Day has a possibility of, hey, Jean, welcome. Thanks for popping in. Always good to see you. But there was another website that kind of picked up on what the Seventh Rule and Virtual TrekCon were laying down, and a lot of people agree that there's a really good chance that T'Pol will show up. Of course, that's stuff that they keep under their hat. I also came across a rumor, but it's old, because it's back to when Bakula they hadn't even canceled. They canceled NCIS. They hadn't even canceled NCIS yet. That it's possible that Archer could show up in Strange New Worlds. Picard, if you guys have seen the latest Picard trailer, he goes back in time. But I mean, he's coming back in time to us. Like, there are cars and things. Hey, listen, let him go visit Carpenter Street. They could cross paths with Archer and they could, run across Archer and T'Pol. That would actually be funny. Listen, if they could do it with Trouble with Tribbles, then they could do it with Carpenter Street, because that would be really funny. But there are opportunities for even an old Bakula, Captain Archer, to show up. What's really funny is I was reading one of the articles I was reading about T'Pol showing up, and they were like, oh, well, she was only 50 in Enterprise. And I hate this. It's like, no, she was 66. And I remember she was 66 because she told Trip. And Trip's response to her was, I think that's, he's like, oh, wow, that's the first time you told me your age. So, if you're going to report this stuff on the web, I bet you Memory Alpha has it right as well. I've never looked at Memory Alpha. I've never needed to. But it bugs me. There was something else I saw in my research where somebody called the theme. It might be on IMDb even. I don't know. It was just one of those little sidebars on Google that called the theme Faith of the Heart. And I'm like, but we all know that the internet is not the end all be all. We all know that people make posts and people are fallible and people can make mistakes. But when I know something, like T'Pol's age, but even 66 is young for a Vulcan. So she shows up and she's 166. Vulcans can live to 200. Let's see. What he got for us, domestic Voyager, but Enterprise is more in line with, and also interesting, Star Trek. Well, we all know how I feel about Voyager. It's still on my bottom. It's in my bottom tier. Some episodes are really good. Some of the characters are absolutely amazing. I have interviewed Robert Picardo for the podcast. He is one of my favorite people. I adore him. He's so much fun to interview. I loved the Doctor. I thought the Doctor on Voyager was great. I loved he showed up in First Contact. He also showed up in DS9 as himself, as Zimmerman, is the guy that created the EMH episode or movies starring those Voyager, the ones Seven wakes up on the devastated planet. A lot of them escaped into those tunnels. You know what? I think a lot. I mean, I don't think you're going to find a Star Trek fan alive who's a fan of any of the original 5 series that wouldn't love to see something new with the original 5 series. And like I said, animation, I mean, Lower Decks is great. The animation on Prodigy, except the way they made Gates McFadden look, I did not like her Beverly. I didn't like the way they did Beverly. But I mean, they can do so much with animation nowadays. I would love, love, love for them to do an animated series of Enterprise, because I think it's the only thing that's going to make the fans happy, just because if they can get the original crew to come back and reprise their roles, then it would be amazing. And, you know, we would all not feel so gypped that we didn't get that 5th season, when we can all pretend like these are the voyages didn't happen, because let's face it, there are a lot of shows that come back. The Connors, aka Roseanne, pops into mind, where they literally just basically forgot their whole final season because it was lame, and they decided, well, no, I mean, who wants to see the Connors after they won the lottery? Let's put them back to where they were before they won the lottery and do it new. So I feel like, you know, well, let's just pretend these are the voyages didn't happen. Let's bring Trip back and let's do it this season. I couldn't see why they couldn't. I mean, theoretically they could, but obviously, and the demand for it is there, but obviously I don't know, you know, obviously they've got so much new Trek coming out that I'm not sure they're going to add anything. I mean, we're all still waiting for the Section 31 thing to really get off the ground. We know it's happening. We just don't know when. Yep. See, Jamie told you weren't alone. There are so many people that want to see more Enterprise. Say hi, Podcat. More people want to see more Kal-El, too. Hi. He was actually on hiatus for a while. He wouldn't even come in even if I carried him in here. So I'm excited that he's decided to come back and say hi to everybody. You want to say something? He actually squeaks. He doesn't speak. He squeaks. But of course, he's not going to talk to the camera. So yeah, I mean, they've got so much going on. But I mean, I don't know. A lot of people would see it, but I just don't. It would be very cool. I just don't see it in the cards. The cloaking cat, not anymore, because I fixed my background. I don't do that. I canceled my subscription. I think I told you guys I had like the coolest software that you didn't need a green screen for, and it was a very low subscription price. But the problem is you couldn't control anything. It just stuck the image behind you. So anything behind me disappeared, including Kal-El. He got cloaked. And if I moved too much, you know, I would disappear into the background. And I ended up deciding I got it for a specific reason. That reason went away. And I thought, you know what, if that reason is gone, I'm just going to go back to saving a couple bucks a month. The green screen is just better. StreamYard and Zoom or whatever lets you control it. Not that I don't really use it on Zoom. Zoom has really good backgrounds that you don't need a green screen for. But for these instances, I really like having the green screen. I think it's better because I don't disappear into the background. It just sort of looks like I'm sitting in the captain's chair. So that's my synopsis of Enterprise. I love sitting here, and it's just so funny. I've been doing this podcast for about 3 years now as a Star Trek podcast. It had a bunch of incarnations before I settled on this. And I've never actually just sat down and talked about soup to nuts about Enterprise. And it really is my Star Trek love. It is my first Star Trek love. Does it have something to do with the fact that I have friendly relationships with with 3 of the actors? Yes. John Billingsley, still, every time I see John Billingsley, and I see him at least once a year, except COVID. But I've seen him since 2016. I've seen him once a year, except for COVID. And I still have to remind him how we met, which is okay, because once I remind him of the story about talking to him in New York, at Missions New York, he does remember, and we laugh about it. He's so funny. He's really great in person. I mean, you see him doing all these wonderful live things. Oh, that reminds me, I did promise you guys another picture before I disappear. So let's see if I can do this one now. I'm going to share this with you guys. So, because we got to do it then and now. This is now. This was this past STLV. And it was the first time in a very long time that all four of them were on stage. That all four of them were on stage together. Usually the Connor and Dominic get their own panel, and then everybody else gets a panel. But for some reason, this year all four of them got the panel, and John Billingsley did most of the talking. Silent Enemy, Eye of the Needle, I don't remember which one. Silent Enemy is one of my favorites, because that's the pineapple eating episode. The bee story was Reed's birthday, and Hoshi running around trying to figure out what his favorite food was. His parents didn't know. By the way, quick side story, and I can't remember where I heard this, but I know that it's true. The actress that played Malcolm's mom in Silent Enemy, Dominic got her that part. He wanted her for the role. So the woman that played his mom, who a lot of people might have seen on a lot of other stuff, he got her that role. Let's see. Eye of the Needle is the Micro Wormhole. It's one of those things I know that I will remember when we get off. It's not enough for me to go on. John, I'm sorry. Micro Wormhole. Killing me. It's not gelling. Which, okay, more Enterprise stories. I might have told you guys this one before, but it's one of my favorites. And it's my show. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. The one with the Romulan from the past. Okay. Wait. Romulan from the past. Why do I keep... The only thing I can think of is the Voyager episode that had the Romulan from the past. Yeah, thanks, Robert. Thank you. That's what I thought. Yeah, all right. So I'm not crazy. Yeah, because they didn't do anything with the Romulans. The only Romulan episode they had was Minefield, where you didn't know that they were Romulans, and then the one in the fourth season with the Andorians, where the Romulans had that drone ship. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, all right. So I'm not crazy. Yeah, the Romulan from the past, that was Voyager, where they were trying to get him to get a message. See, I don't like Voyager, but things I pick up from HNI. They were trying to get the Romulan from the past to get a message to Starfleet for them, but then it turns out that they connected him to the past. That they connected to somebody from the past, and it wasn't going to work. That's okay, Jean. It's all right. No worries. And Robert, thanks for the assist on that one, because yeah, that's what I thought. It was the Voyager episode. All right, so back to my favorite Anthony Montgomery story. Yesterday's out. Yeah, but we're not talking about... yeah, this is true as well. Yeah, and then we got Sela. Anyway, so the story. So this has to have been, I guess, 2018. Is it 2018 or 2019? Maybe it was 2019. Anyway, it was 2019. Maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I have a friend of mine that loves Enterprise pretty much as I do. He actually lives about 3.5 hours away from me, but I don't see him that much. So we see each other at Star Trek things, and I saw him in Vegas, and we're going around together, and we ended up at Anthony Montgomery's table, and Anthony has all of this stuff spread out on his table, including oh, happy birthday, Jean! Absolutely, happy birthday, and live long and prosper. So he has everything, and he even has a script for the Communicator that they had all signed that he was selling. So I'm like, oh, the Communicator was a really good episode. That one kind of tells you the story in itself. It's the one where Malcolm leaves the Communicator on the planet, and then they have to go back and get it, and they get caught. Okay, that's pretty easy. So then Anthony heard me explaining it to somebody or something, and he looked at me, and I said, listen, I am not that big of a geek that I know all the titles to all of your episodes. I swear I'm not that person. He also had this picture on his table of all of them at a funeral in regular clothes. And somebody comes up to the table and they go, "What episode's that from?" And before Anthony could say anything, I went, "A Night in Sick Bay." And Anthony just looked at me and I went, "Oh my God, I swear to God. I really am not that person. It just so happens the communicator's obvious, and Night in Sick Bay is one of my favorites." Let's see. And Dominic and Anthony were terrific. Yes, they were. I did not go see Galaxy Quest. I've watched it once. I don't like Tim Allen, so I wasn't going to watch it again, but I heard Anthony's commentary was amazing. Dominic actually you know what? And I only say this because I thought this at one point. Dominic spells his name with a C, and then Keating is just his last initial, but when he does his signature, sometimes it's hard to tell. But Dominic spells his name with a C. Yes, they're always terrific. They are always fun. Bingo was a very interesting experience. I hope that they go back to karaoke, that it's safe to go back to karaoke. Obviously, Gallifrey 1's having karaoke right now. They've listed karaoke as for 2 nights. I haven't sung karaoke in years. I'm just not sure it's going to be safe enough by next February to go back to singing karaoke. But I'm hoping by STLV this coming August it will be, because Where My Heart Will Take Me or Faith of the Heart. The only time I will call it Faith of the Heart is when I have to sing it at karaoke and they don't have the Russell Watson version, and I have to sing the Rod Stewart version. They're practically identical. And for anybody that was, let's see, I only didn't do it 1 year and that was a mistake. But I've sung Where My Heart Will Take Me 2017 and 2019, and I would have sung it in 2021, but we were playing bingo. Yeah, and the prizes were amazing for bingo. The prizes were amazing. Creation was really generous with the swag. But anyway, so what else do you guys want to talk about before we say goodnight? Because you know I love hanging out with y'all. The one thing I wanted to ask you guys, I don't know, I know who's here and I know who a couple of people have saw it after, but I mean, did you guys like those profiles? Because I would love to keep doing like the actor profiles where I can kind of just sit down and do deep dives into some of my favorite people. I'm going to start with probably people that I've met and I know, so I can add a little of my own personal flavor. But I would love to hear what you guys thought, honestly, about the profiles, if you thought that they were worth it to sit through. And Lasso, who does, like I've mentioned before, and you all need to subscribe. John also has a podcast, so you guys need to subscribe to both of them on YouTube. And I have a feeling I might get a text from Lasso after the show telling me I shouldn't do this, that it's my show. But I'm still going to ask you guys if you guys really loved, if you guys really liked the, oh, thank you guys. Okay, cool. All right, then I will look into doing more. The minute I announced the Connor one, a bunch of people on Twitter asked me to do a Dominic one, Dominic profile. So I might just have to do a deep dive into Dominic Keating. Oh, gee, I don't know if I'll be able to handle that. Yep, John has his own YouTube channel, so you can go check out John. You can go check out Lasso. Please subscribe and support them, because I love that they support me, so I'm happy to try and support them. But yeah, I could do Dominic, maybe a Nicole DeBoer one. Like I said, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to start with the people that I've talked to, and kind of, build it out. But there's definitely a couple people I've got rolling around in my head. I'm not sure who I will do next. Also, anybody who lives in the Los Angeles area who is a Doctor Who fan, or if you know somebody who is a Doctor Who fan in the Los Angeles area, Lambda Quadrant and me. Right now, assuming, cross fingers, I do not test positive for COVID, because I am going to get tested before I travel. I am being careful. So hopefully that won't be a concern. But next month, the 18th, 19th, and 20th, and the reason I will not be going to go see JG and Robert up in Ticonderoga the weekend before, I will be in LA with Lambda Quadrant hosting a get-together on Friday night, as well as working a booth. I call it a booth, but it's a table in the dealer's room. Lambda Quadrant is going to be there all weekend. They are both incredible incredibly interesting people I have the pleasure of knowing. I'm actually going to see Chase because Pop Culture Hero Coalition is going to be at Gallifrey. Don't forget to hashtag be kind. And to hashtag go follow Chase on Pop Culture Hero Coalition. They are all over the interwebs. So, and you can find them just Superhero IRL is their handle. The Twitter handle is Superhero IRL. But you can also find them just looking at Pop Culture Hero Coalition. So you guys all need to go support Chase. Support me. Support my friends Magic Lasso and Jean Malo. That would be great. Just because, you know what? We're all here. We are all a very loving Star Trek family. And there's just so much love to go around. And I always love when you guys come hang out with me. Will there be a celebrity profile coming up next week? Don't know. I guess it all depends on what exciting things happen in the Trekverse between now and then. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I always appreciate it. I love seeing you guys. Be safe until next week. Be safe, stay warm, stay dry, all of that stuff, because I want to see you all next week. And until then, live long and prosper.
Nicole DeBoer, and you've been listening to the NX7062 podcast.